Hey everybody. Um, Good morning. I hope you guys are having a good day. If you will, just keep in mind that these notes are just as if I were there. Okay. So I want you doing your notes like you should be doing. If I get back and I check your notes tomorrow and you have completed everything, I will give you a piece of candy. And we are going to take just a little quiz tomorrow to kind of see where you are. Okay. Nothing big. It's not going to count for a grade, but it's just for you to see where you are, me to see where you are, and for us both to see where you need to go. On your unit test, if you grow, I will also add candy and chips for that unit test, okay? Which means you have got to take notes today. So if you are able to grow, which means if you make a 20 today, and on your unit test you make a 40, you're growing. Okay, we're moving in the right direction. So you will be rewarded. All right, so I want you guys to keep that in mind. Now, do not aim to make a 20 if you should be making 80s and 90s and 100s. Okay, it's that time of year we really got to strive and keep pushing. Okay, we're close and we need to finish out strong. So don't let up. Please take your notes today. Please behave for the sub. And if you do what you're supposed to do, you will be rewarded. Okay? If you do not do what you were supposed to do, you will be in trouble when I return. Also, remember, I am on campus. You do not want me to have to come back up to the room. Okay? So with that, let's get started with notes. If you go to Safari, just type in our Weebly site, missdavenportsci.weebly.com, or like right there. Okay? Just like always, you are going to go to classwork. We've got each unit. We're going to scroll all the way down to what we're on now. Here's all of your notes already in there, so you can be looking at them, getting familiar with it. Here are your notes for where we are right now. The first one is here. And you can tell it is parts of the plant notes. Okay, so right there. So most of us started in class the other day with this. Some of us got a little further than others, but we're going to start from the beginning and go from there, okay? So I want you to just simply focus on this. Make sure you've got your title written down. And let's start with this. So what does an organism need to keep from becoming extinct? And so we discussed this, and we came up with those two answers. We've got to be able to get food to survive. Remember, humans don't go through photosynthesis. Plants do. Okay? So there's more than one way that a plant and an animal can get food. Plants get it through photosynthesis. Humans get it by eating. Okay? So you've got your answer there. Photosynthesis, make food, or like humans, you find an energy source. Our energy source is plants and animals. Okay? Second thing, reproduce. If we don't have organisms being reproduced, then we're going to become extinct. So you've got to survive by getting food and reproducing. These are your first two notes. All right, this right here is super important. Flowering plants carry out reproduction in their flowers. Okay, that means, let's look at, let me pull this other picture up. When we talk about a flower, a plant, reproduction occurs in the flower, not any of this other stuff right here, in the actual flower, which is usually the pretty part that we see. That's where seeds are made, okay? That is super important for you to know. Reproduction occurs in the, you should be able to say, flower, okay? All right, so now we're going to talk about this, and remember that in the plant, most plant structures have the male and the female reproductive structure in the actual plant, in one single plant, okay? So, let's look at the different parts. You've got the stamen. Let me pull this back up. You've got the stamen, and as you can tell here, it's made up by the anther and this thing called filament, which is just this right here, okay? The most important thing to know here is anther. And in just a minute, we're going to go and we're going to define these. I'm going to tell you what they are, what happens in them. But just for you to know, the male structure of the reproductive structure is called the stamen. Now, his nickname is Stanley. Stanley the stamen. Okay? Stanley the stamen. And Stanley the stamen, he's like the head of this, and he's made up by these two guys. So Stanley the stamen is composed of the anther and the filament. Okay? And that's it for the guy, for the male structure. For the female structure, I named this one after my mom. I haven't told her yet, though, so. But this is the pistil, okay? And that's the female reproductive structure. And so her name is Patricia the pistil. My mom's name is Patricia. So Patricia the pistil. And she is made up of these guys right here. Now, on your paper that I gave you, you're going to have something right here, a word right there, and right there. You can mark those out. You don't really need to know those, so we're just going to bypass them. Okay, so Patricia the pistil is made up of the stigma, which is this top of this middle structure right here. That is where pollen goes and attaches. Okay, and usually this right here is a little bit sticky, so the pollen just sticks to it. Okay, you've got the style, which is just this little, it's kind of like a tube where the pollen can go. Remember, the pollen is the sperm, the pollen can go. And then you've got your ovary, which sits at the bottom of this structure right here. So you've simply got this one structure, which is your stigma, your style, and the ovary. Okay? And that's what makes up Patricia the pistil. The pistil is simply the female reproductive structure in a flowering plant. All right? So just generally, let's take a look at this. You've got the male structures here, so wherever my mouse goes, follow it. You've got the male structure here. You've got filament, 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 and filament, okay? And at the top of each filament, you've got anther, 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 anther. Those are the male structures. And then you've got like this one female structure. I feel like she wants all the attention. It's just her. She's right in the center, okay? Patricia the pistil, you've got the stigma at the top, the style, and then in the very bottom at the center is the ovary. Okay? All right. So now we're going to start to kind of look at the whole flower, because if you look here, we've got a petal, we've got this thing called a sepal, and something that you don't see on this one that we're going to look and see on this one, we've got the stem, and we've got the roots. Okay? So we've got to be able to know what those are, identify them, and be able to define them, okay? Let me get that out of the way. So, your stamen, Stanley the stamen, is located inside of the petals, and it's the male reproductive structure of a flower. And like I said, his name is Stanley the stamen. And if you look, there's a trick right here. This right here spells men, okay? And so you can relate the stamen to the male part of the flower, the male reproductive structure of the flower. Okay? You've got the anther. So remember, that's part that makes this guy up. The anther is at the tip of the stamen. It is the tip of the stamen. And it produces and stores the pollen. So your pollen is produced and stored here, 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 and here. Why do you think it's important for the pollen right here to be so close to Patricia the pistil? Because if pollen enters and collides with the ovary, you have reproduction and you make a seed, which is obviously what you want when we go back up here to keep from becoming extinct. You've got to be able to reproduce, okay? So the anther produces and stores pollen. That is super, super important. I can definitely see them asking you that on your NCFE. So we've got to know that when we dissect our flower, you're going to be able to see that really clearly. We're actually going to be able to actually hit those, and pollen's going to pop out, which is going to be super cool. I think it's super cool. All right, so there's one page. Click out of your notes. We're going to go right here. Bam. Let's keep going. So we've got the pistil. Remember, that is the center of the flower right here. This whole thing is considered the pistil, and the different parts of the pistil are these guys. So this whole thing is your pistil, and then you've got your stigma, your style, and your ovary, which make the pistil up, okay? So the pistil is the center of the flower attached to the top of the flower stem. So it's attached to the top of the flower stem. That's right there. It is the female reproductive structure of the flower. Patricia the pistil. Okay? Remember, I named that after my mom. And I haven't told her yet. So keep that a secret. All right, the ovary. It is at the bottom of the pistil, and it contains ovules. You don't really know. That's what that word right there was. You don't necessarily know that. That's what holds the eggs, though. Your ovule holds your eggs. Okay? So when fertilization occurs, the ovary grows into the fruit or the vegetable, or you produce your seed. Okay? And the length of day or night controls flowering. So let me say that again. The length of day or night controls flowering. If you think about that in realistic terms, what does a plant have to have in order to grow? It's got to have sunlight, because if we go back to how a plant gets food, it gets food from the what? It gets food from the sun through photosynthesis, right? So if it doesn't have the sun, if it doesn't have light, if it doesn't have a long length of day, it's not going to have much food, which means there's no energy in order for it to grow and reproduce. Okay? So obviously the length of day or night controls flowering. If there's not a lot of light, are you going to be able to grow and reproduce very well? If there is enough day, if there is enough light, are you going to be able to reproduce and grow well? So think about that and just think logically, okay? Let's go to our general terms, all right? Now, if you notice, I left out filament and I left out style on your definitions, and I also left out stigma, but let's go ahead and add stigma because you need to know that. So let's write that down really quick. I'll do this. Here's what I want you to know. Here's what I want you to write down about stigma. All right. This is the part of the pistil where the pollen is really where the pollen lands. We'll just put it like that. Okay. So it's the part of the pistil where the pollen lands, and that should be, that's pretty good. So get that written down. Also add to this the stigma is usually a little bit sticky to trap the pollen, okay? So right here, you've got the pollen around here. And remember, during this time of year, you've got pollen flying everywhere, okay? You've got it flying through the air, just by nature, by wind, okay? By water. Think about when it rains, the rainwater carrying it. But you've also got pollinators such as bees carrying it around, okay? They land on the flower. The pollen gets trapped in the stigma. It travels down the style where it lands here, and it's introduced to the egg as it enters the ovule. Okay, the egg's in there in your ovary, and reproduction occurs. Okay, fertilization occurs, and then reproduction occurs. So make sure you've got that written down. All right, and then just your general terms. I'll go to the other page in just a second, but you've got your sepal right here, and you've got, it's not up here, so we'll stay on this one. But the sepal is just the part of the flower where that it protects the flower. Okay, so let me show you a picture. Sepal of flower. And you'll be able to see this really, really well when we look at it. But look right here. So if you ever notice before a flower really begins to bloom, it's got this protective green, it looks like petals, but it's really this outer layer called the sepals, okay? And it just protects the blooming flower. So these guys right here protect this while it's growing and maturing in order for it to be able to bloom, okay? So that's what the sepal is. The sepals are. They are modified leaves that encase the flower, and they protect the developing flower. So that's your sepal, okay? You've got your petals, your flower petals, and they are leaf-like, usually colorful. And I don't know why I stopped there, but they attract your pollinators, okay? Attract pollinators. And you spell that. There we go. Make sure I spell that right. Yep. Okay, pollinators. That's the word that goes there. All right. Fertilization is the union of the male and female gametes, the sperm and egg, to make a zygote, which is just simply a fertilized egg. Okay? And this is how seeds are made. So like we talked about, when we planted our flowers today, I mean, not our flowers, but our zucchini, squash, okra, spinach, when we planted that today, you were able to see those seeds. Remember that DNA that came from the male and the female? They go through fertilization, and when they're fertilized, they produce this fertilized egg, and that just means that you've got this DNA that tells the seed what it's going to grow as. Okay, is it going to be a rose? Is it going to be a tulip? Is it going to be food? So that DNA tells it what to do. Okay. All right. So those are your notes. Make sure you have them written down. We're going to go here. And you have your stem and your roots left. Okay. So write stem and write roots. All right, so think about what you think the stem does. It's holding up. Think about a person, okay? A person's got maybe this would represent their kind of their legs, their arms, their head. What does that stem do? It supports the flower. Okay, so it's like a really good support system for that flower. All right, what do we think the roots do? Think about it. Just think, what do you think the roots do? If this is in the soil, it's obviously going to be doing what? Taking up what? It's going to be taking up water. And remember those little balls of fertilizer today that had the nutrients in it? It's going to have some added nutrients to it. And we're going to learn about this thing called the xylem and the phloem, which carry it, what it needs, and what it doesn't need. It just brings it back, okay, and stores it until it does need it. So that's what your roots do. Your roots are super important along with your stem. And remember, just like a body, if you don't have one of these parts working right, none of it's going to work right. So you've got to make sure everything, you know what everything does, but it's all got to work properly as well. Okay? All right, that is it for your notes. So what you are going to do now, if you have finished, is you are going to, you have got a SchoolNet, and the code will be on the board. So you need to look at the code on the board or get it from the sub. And you're not going to use your notes on it. It's just for you to see and for me to see where you are. And remember, if you grow on your test, you will get a snack or a bag of chips and candy. And remember, if you complete your notes today, you will get a piece of candy. Okay? And I'll think about a snack. I don't know. Probably just a piece of candy, but I think that's good. All right? So please do what you're supposed to. Be ready to roll tomorrow. Okay? Do not forget your spiral review is due Friday. Everybody will be starting their quizzes Friday if they are not ready for them tomorrow. All right? I will see y'all later.